Welcome to Storytales. Please like this video and subscribe to Storytales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. Corbin Hale wiped grease from his hands with a rag that had seen better days. The welding shop hummed with the familiar sounds of metal against metal, sparks flying in controlled streams. Closing up, Corbin asked Mike, the shop owner. Yeah, June's friends are coming over tonight. Corbin's voice carried no enthusiasm. Some kind of birthday thing. That right? The big 3-5. Mike clapped him on the shoulder. Don't let those fancy ladies push you around. Corbin nodded, his face neutral. Mike was the only one who seemed to see through the veneer of his marriage. 6 years with June had taught Corbin patience, if nothing else. The drive home took 20 minutes, his truck rattling over Montana potholes. Bozeman sprawled around him, a town that felt increasingly foreign as June's obsession with status grew. He pulled into the driveway of their modest ranch-style home. From the outside, it looked ordinary. Inside, however, June had converted their living room into what she called her content studio, complete with ring lights and an assortment of props. The sound of laughter hit him before he opened the door. And then he actually fixed the neighbor's lawnmower for free, June was saying. I mean, who'd have known we could use the extra cash for my rebrand? More laughter. Corbin paused, his hand on the doorknob. He pushed through anyway. 4 pairs of eyes locked onto him as he entered. June's smile shifted. It was subtle, but Corbin caught it. The genuine amusement melted into something performative. There's the birthday boy, she exclaimed, bouncing up from the couch to plant a quick kiss on his cheek. Her phone was already raised, capturing the moment. How was work, babe? Fine. He nodded toward the others. Ladies, Kinsey, June's best friend since college, gave him a once-over. Still covered in dirt, I see. Authentic blue-collar chic. Her sarcasm was thinly veiled as a compliment. Tessa raised her wine glass. Happy birthday, Corbin. June has been planning something special. Marla, the quietest of the group, simply nodded. She at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. I'm going to shower, Corbin said. Hurry back down, June called after him. We got plans. Under the hot water, Corbin let his shoulders slump. 6 years ago, when he'd met June at a friend's barbecue, she'd been different, or maybe he'd been different. Back then, her ambition had seemed focused. She'd been finishing her marketing degree, talked about helping local businesses. Somewhere along the way, that drive had twisted into an insatiable need for validation from strangers on the internet. He dried off and dressed in the clothes June had laid out: a button-down shirt that felt too stiff and jeans without a single tear or oil stain. His presentable outfit, as she called it. Downstairs, the women huddled around June's phone, giggling. Ready for your birthday adventure? June asked, her eyes glinting with something Corbin couldn't quite place. What exactly are we doing? He glanced at the 4 of them, dressed up like they were heading to one of Bozeman's trendier bars. If we told you, it wouldn't be a surprise, Kinsey said, exchanging looks with Tessa. Marla stood slightly apart, fidgeting with her purse strap. It's a getaway, June explained, reaching into her bag. She pulled out a black silk blindfold. Just for tonight. We're driving you somewhere special. Corbin's stomach tightened. I don't need anything fancy, June. We could just grab dinner. Nonsense. Tessa chimed in. June's been planning this for weeks. Had she? Corbin tried to recall any hint that June had been organizing something for his birthday. Most mornings, she barely looked up from her phone long enough to say goodbye when he left for work. Trust me, June said, stepping closer. This is going to be a night you'll never forget. Something in her tone should have warned him. But after years of trying to keep their marriage intact, Corbin allowed himself to hope that maybe this was June trying to reconnect. All right, he conceded, allowing her to tie the blindfold around his eyes. That Kinsey's voice came from somewhere to his left. Let me get this on video. The followers are going to eat this up. June guided him outside, the others following closely, their suppressed giggles setting off warning bells that Corbin chose to ignore. The drive took longer than expected. Corbin, still blindfolded, tried to engage in conversation, but the women seemed more interested in talking among themselves. Their voices were hushed, punctuated by occasional bursts of laughter that fell silent whenever he asked a question. How much longer? He asked after what felt like hours. Almost there, birthday boy, June replied, her voice carrying a strange edge. Getting impatient, the car slowed and turned onto what felt like a gravel road. The smooth pavement gave way to bumps and dips that jolted Corbin in his seat. The car came to a stop. Engines off. Doors opening. Can I take this off now? Corbin reached for the blindfold, but Kinsey's voice came sharp from his left. Not yet. We have to position everything just right. Hands gripped his arms, guiding him out of the car and onto what felt like loose gravel. The air smelled different dry, with a hint of old gasoline and dust. Okay now. June's voice came from further away than expected. Corbin pulled off the blindfold. Blinked once, twice. Disbelief washed over him. They stood in an abandoned gas station, miles from anywhere, the building's windows boarded up, pumps long removed. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the empty lot. No other structures were visible in any direction, just Montana wilderness stretching toward distant mountains. June, Kinsey, Tessa, and Marla stood by the car. June's phone pointed at him, recording. What is this? Corbin asked, his voice steady despite the confusion churning inside him. The June smile was different, now no pretense of affection. Consider a challenge, babe. You're always talking about being self-reliant, right? About how men these days are too soft. Had he ever said that? Corbin couldn't recall. Is this a joke? He stepped toward them. Kinsey stepped in front of June, tossing something at his feet. A folded note landed in the dirt. Read it, she prompted, barely containing her amusement. Corbin bent down and picked up the paper. Written in June's looping handwriting, "Go find your manhood." My wallet and phone, Corbin said, patting his pockets. Empty. Where are they? Back at home, June replied, her voice mockingly sweet. Don't worry, you'll figure something out. You're always fixing things, right? Fix this. The reality of the situation crashed down on him. You're leaving me here? In the middle of nowhere. Oh my God, his face. Tessa squealed. This is gold. We'll come back tomorrow, June said, though her tone carried no promise. Maybe, if you haven't found your way by then. They were already backing toward the car. June, Corbin called, his voice firm but not pleading. Think about what you're doing. I've thought about it plenty, she replied. The girls and I have been planning this for weeks. Happy birthday, Corbin. Marla hesitated, looking between Corbin and the others. For a moment, he thought she might speak up. Instead, she lowered her eyes and slid into the back seat. The car doors slammed shut. The engine roared to life. And before Corbin could cross the distance between them, they were speeding away, dust billowing behind them. He stood alone as twilight deepened around him. The note crumpled in his fist. The darkness settled over the abandoned gas station like a shroud. Corbin's anger had burned hot for the first hour, then cooled into something harder, more resolute. He'd searched the old building, finding nothing but empty shelves and rodent droppings. No food, no water, no phone. The temperature dropped with the sun. April nights in Montana weren't forgiving. He zipped his jacket higher and assessed his options. Wait until morning and start walking? Hope that June wasn't serious and would return? Both seemed like surrender. The highway they'd driven in on couldn't be more than a mile away. If he reached it, maybe he could flag down a passing truck. Decision made, Corbin oriented himself toward where he'd seen headlights in the distance and started walking. The Montana night sky opened above him, stars brilliant without city lights to dim them. Under different circumstances, he might have appreciated the view. Now, it only reminded him of how small and insignificant June had tried to make him feel. 2 hours later, feet aching in his non-work boots, Corbin reached the highway. Traffic was sparse this late, but he kept walking, thumb out whenever headlights appeared in the distance. Most cars sped past. Near dawn, a semi pulled over. The driver, a bearded man in his 60s, eyed him suspiciously. You don't look like the usual hitchhiker, the man observed. I'm not, Corbin replied. My wife thought it would be funny to leave me stranded in an old gas station back there. Some birthday present. The driver's eyebrows rose. That's Cole, man. Where you headed? Corbin hesitated. Where was he headed? Back to Bozeman? Back to June. South, he answered, surprising himself. As far south as you're going. I can take you as far as Rock Springs, Wyoming. That work? Corbin nodded and climbed in point 3 days later. After hitching rides with 4 different truckers, Corbin found himself in Tampa, Florida. The humidity hit him like a wall after the dry Montana air, but the warmth was welcome. His clothes were grimy, his stomach hollow with hunger. He'd traded his watch for a meal in Wyoming and done odd repairs at a truck stop in Tennessee for another. The Tampa marina sprawled before him, boats bobbing in gentle waves. Something about the water called to him its vastness, maybe, or the promise of movement. He walked the docks until he found a secluded corner behind a storage shed where he could sleep undisturbed. For 3 nights, Corbin made the boatyard his home, washing in public restrooms and picking up discarded food from nearby restaurants. During the day, he observed the workers, studying their movements that on the 4th morning, a voice startled him awake. Either you're planning to steal something, or you're desperate. The man standing over him was weathered, with white hair and skin tanned to leather by the sun. Which is it? Corbin sat up, not bothering to deny his situation. Not a thief, just needed somewhere to sleep. The man studied him, eyes sharp despite his age. You've been watching my man work. Why? I'm a welder, Corbin answered honestly, and a mechanic. I know my way around engines. That right? The man extended a hand, helping Corbin to his feet. Name's Rudy Garland, ex-Navy, current pain in the ass to boat owners who don't maintain their vessels properly. Corbin Hale, you look like you haven't eaten a proper meal in days. I haven't. Rudy nodded. I got a proposition for you, Corbin Hale. I need help with a stubborn inboard motor that's giving me hell. You fix it, I'll feed you and let you bunk in my workshop until you figure out your next move. Deal. Corbin considered the offer. Going back to Bozeman meant facing June, meant trying to rebuild something that in retrospect had been crumbling for years. Staying meant starting over with nothing but his skills and whatever opportunity the stranger was offering. Deal, Corbin said, taking Rudy's calloused hand. But I'll need tools. Rudy grinned. Son, tools are the one thing I've got plenty of. That afternoon, Corbin diagnosed and repaired the troublesome motor in half the time Rudy expected. By evening, he'd earned not just a meal, but Rudy's genuine respect. Where'd you learn to work like that? Rudy asked over plates of fresh-caught fish at a dockside cafe. My father, Corbin replied. He ran a garage in Montana. Taught me engines before I could drive. And what brought you to my boatyard looking like a stray dog? Corbin hesitated, then decided on honesty. My wife and her friends thought it would be funny to abandon me at a gas station for my birthday. No phone, no wallet. Just a note telling me to find my manhood. Rudy whistled low. That's about the meanest thing I've heard in a while. You going back to her? The question hung in the salty air between them. Corbin had been avoiding it since he'd pointed his thumb south instead of back toward Bozeman. No, he said finally, the decision solidifying as he spoke it aloud. I'm done. Rudy nodded, approval evident in his eyes. Sometimes the current takes you places you never intended to go. Might be the best thing that ever happened to you, son. Over his plate of food, staring out at boats rocking gently in their slips, Corbin felt something shift inside him. Not just anger or hurt, but resolve. June had meant to break him, to humiliate him. Instead, she'd set him free. I'm going to need a phone eventually, he said. To close accounts, notify work. We'll get you sorted, Rudy promised. One step at a time. That night, on a cot in the back of Rudy's workshop, surrounded by the smell of motor oil and salt water, Corbin slept better than he had in years. The decision was made. He was never going back, not to June, not to Bozeman. He was done. 6 months transformed Corbin from a boatyard stray into Rudy's right-hand man. His welding skills, adapted from land vehicles to marine vessels, proved invaluable. Clients began asking for him specifically, impressed by his attention to detail and quiet competence. You've got a gift, Rudy told him one evening as they closed up the shop. These rich folks trust you because you don't bullshit them. Corbin nodded, accepting the compliment with characteristic reserve. He'd established a small life here, a room rented from Rudy, a basic wardrobe, a used phone. He'd notified his former employer in Montana, but otherwise severed ties with his old life. June had filed a missing persons report 3 weeks after his disappearance, a fact he'd learned from his one remaining contact in Bozeman. He hadn't responded. Let her wonder. Got a special client coming tomorrow, Rudy said, wiping his hands on a rag. Viola Manx owns half the waterfront property in Tampa and doesn't let you forget it. Problem with her boat? Corbin asked. The Vesper Grace. 60-foot yacht that belonged to her late husband. Been sitting idle for 2 years since he passed. She wants it restored. The next morning, Viola Manx arrived at the boatyard driving a vintage Jaguar that was worth more than everything Corbin had ever owned combined. She stepped out a tall woman in her early 60s, silver hair pulled back in an elegant knot, sharp eyes assessing everything around her. Mr. Garland, she greeted Rudy with a firm handshake before turning to Corbin. And you must be Mr. Hale. Ma'am, Corbin nodded. I don't particularly care for formalities, she said. Call me Viola. Now, about my husband's yacht. She led them to the marina where the Vesper Grace was docked. Even neglected, the vessel was magnificent sleek lines, teak decking, custom fittings. Charles loved this boat more than most things, Viola said, her voice matter-of-fact rather than bitter. I couldn't bear to sell it, but I haven't had the heart to use it either. Now I find I miss the water. Corbin walked the deck, noting the needed repairs, the areas of neglect, the potential beneath the tarnish. It's a beautiful vessel, he said. It deserves to be on the water. Something in his tone made Viola study him more closely. You understand attachment to things with souls, Mr. Hale. Some things earn loyalty, he replied. They deserve proper care. She nodded, seemingly satisfied. I want her restored completely. No shortcuts. No substitutions. Every detail as Charles would have wanted it. That will take time, Rudy warned. And money. Viola waved a dismissive hand. I have both in abundance. What I lack is patience for incompetence. I'll be checking progress weekly. And she did. Every Thursday at 10 a.m., Viola arrived to inspect their work. At first, her questions were pointed, her scrutiny intense. But as weeks passed, and the Vesper Grace began to reclaim its former glory under Corbin's meticulous care, her visits became less about oversight and more about appreciation. You have an unusual background for a boatyard worker, she observed one day, watching Corbin refinish a section of deck. I was a mechanic in Montana, he replied. Engines are engines, whether they're in cars or boats. And what brought you to Florida? Corbin hesitated. He'd shared the story with Rudy, but had been vague with others. Something about Viola's directness prompted honesty. A bad marriage ended badly, he said simply. Viola nodded, accepting the explanation without pressing. People disappoint. It's what they do. Over the months of restoration, a rapport developed between them. Viola began bringing lunch during her visits, always enough for Rudy too, but clearly meant as an opportunity to talk with Corbin. She shared stories of building her shipping business with her husband, of the challenges she'd faced as a woman in the industry. Corbin, usually guarded, found himself opening up about his father's garage, his love of working with his hands, even eventually the full story of June's betrayal. She meant to diminish you, Viola observed after hearing the tale. Instead, she set you free. Corbin looked up from the engine he was fine-tuning. That's exactly it. Some people can only feel tall by standing on others, she continued. Your wife sounds like a climber without her own mountain. 9 months into the restoration, with the Vesper Grace nearly complete, Viola made Corbin an unexpected offer. I need someone to manage my marina, she said without preamble. The current fellow is retiring. The position comes with a substantial salary and a waterfront apartment. Corbin looked to Rudy, who grinned. Did you think I didn't know she was poaching you? Go on, son. You've outgrown this old boatyard. The transition from worker to manager came naturally to Corbin. His fairness earned him respect from the dock workers, while his technical knowledge impressed the wealthy boat owners. The waterfront apartment minimalist but elegant became his first real home since leaving Montana. Viola became more than an employer. They shared meals regularly, attended boat shows together, developed a friendship that surprised them both with its depth. She introduced him to her circle business associates, old money families, influential figures in Tampa society. Not once did he feel judged for his background or profession. What he didn't share with Rudy was how his relationship with Viola had evolved. The dinners had become more intimate, their conversations deeper. At 63 to his 36, the age gap might have seemed significant to outsiders. To them, it was irrelevant. 6 months later, they married in a private ceremony on the deck of the Vesper Grace, just them, Rudy as best man, and Viola's attorney as witness. No announcements, no social media, no fuss. Just a quiet commitment between two people who had found unexpected connection. Viola added Corbin's name to her business holdings, making him a partner rather than an employee. Together, they expanded the marina, adding a high-end repair facility that quickly gained reputation among the yachting community. "You've exceeded every expectation," Viola told him on their first anniversary, as they cruised along the Gulf Coast on the Vesper Grace. "And I've had high expectations all my life." Corbin took her hand, still marveling at how completely his life had transformed in just 2 years. "You took a chance on me when I had nothing." "You had everything that matters," she corrected. "Integrity, skill, resilience." They stood together at the railing, watching dolphins play in the yacht's wake, content in the life they'd built. Neither could have anticipated how the past was about to collide with their present. Back in Bozeman, June Whitlow Hale stared at her reflection in the camera lens, adjusting her expression to one of practiced grief. This was the 97th video in her #FindCorbin series, and she perfected the art of the tearful plea. "Today marks 1 year since my husband Corbin disappeared," she said, voice trembling just enough to seem authentic. "The police have found no leads, but I refuse to give up hope." She dabbed carefully at her eyes, ensuring her makeup remained intact despite the crocodile tears. "To whoever might have information, please." A perfectly timed catch in her throat. "I just want to know he's safe." June ended the recording and immediately dropped the distressed expression. She checked the video, nodded with satisfaction, and posted it to her account, now boasting over 250,000 followers, up from barely 5,000 before Corbin's disappearance. "How was that one?" asked Kinsey from her spot on June's couch, scrolling through her own phone. "Perfect," June replied, already watching the notifications roll in. The 1-year anniversary is getting tons of engagement. 3 brands have reached out about sponsoring content. Kinsey smirked. "Who knew your boring husband would be your ticket to influencer status?" "Tragedy sells," June shrugged. "And everyone loves a mystery." The doorbell rang. June quickly rearranged her features into an appropriate expression of ongoing distress before opening the door. Tessa and Marla stood on the porch, Tessa clutching a bottle of wine, Marla looking uncomfortable as always. "Anniversary wine," Tessa announced, pushing past June into the house. 1 year of freedom disguised as tragedy. "Brilliance." "Keep your voice down," June hissed, glancing at the neighbor's house. "The walls have ears." The 4 women settled in the living room, which had been upgraded significantly with the proceeds from June's growing social media presence. New furniture, professional lighting, a designated recording area, all funded by sympathy for the wife of a missing man. "I saw your latest video," Tessa said, pouring wine into glasses. The subtle mascara smudge was a nice touch. "I've had practice," June replied, dropping the facade now that they were alone. "The cop who handles Corbin's case actually asked me out last week." "Can you believe it? Did you say yes?" Kinsey asked, eyebrows raised. "Of course not. The grieving wife can't date the detective. But once they officially declare him dead or I decide to move on publicly, maybe." Marla, who had been quiet, finally spoke. "Don't you ever feel bad about this?" The other 3 women turned to her with varying expressions of surprise and annoyance. "Feel bad about what?" June asked coldly. "About all of it. The prank that went too far. Lying to everyone. Using Corbin's disappearance to get famous." "We didn't make him disappear," Kinsey interjected. "He chose to run away instead of coming back home like a normal person. After we abandoned him with nothing at an abandoned gas station," Marla pointed out. "On his birthday. It was a joke," Tessa said dismissively. "He took it too seriously. Or not seriously enough." June added. Either way, it worked out better than I could have planned. Do you know how hard it is to build a following these days? Missing husband content practically markets itself. Marla looked down at her untouched wine. What if he's dead? A silence fell over the room. He's not dead, June said firmly. He's too stubborn to die. He's out there somewhere, probably working at some garage, living his simple little life. Then why not let him? Marla asked. Why keep up this charade? Because, June leaned forward, I've invested a year in building this narrative. Brands are paying attention. I've been on 3 talk shows. A podcast about missing persons wants me as a regular guest. I'm not throwing that away. Marla didn't lift her glass point 3 weeks later. Marla sat alone in her apartment, scrolling through news sites, a habit she'd developed since the day they'd left Corbin at the gas station. Guilt had become her constant companion, growing heavier as June's celebrity status rose. That a headline caught her eye. Tampa Charity Gala raises millions for maritime education. It was the kind of article she'd normally skip, but something made her click. The page loaded, showing photographs of Tampa's elite at a lavish event aboard a yacht. Her breath caught as she recognized a face in one of the images, Corbin. Older, more confident-looking, standing beside an elegant older woman. His arm was around her waist, and a wedding band gleamed on his finger. Marla's hands shook as she enlarged the image. The caption read, Shipping magnate Viola Manx with husband Corbin Hale at the annual Maritime Future Foundation Gala aboard their yacht, Vesper Grace. She printed the article and image, folded it carefully, and placed it in her purse. 3 days passed before she worked up the courage to show it to Tessa. Holy shit, Tessa breathed, staring at the photo. That's definitely him. And who's the old lady? His wife, apparently, Marla replied. She owns ships. And that yacht they're on? It's worth millions. Does June know? Not yet. Tessa looked up, a calculation visible in her eyes. We need to tell her. Why? So she can harass him? Hasn't she done enough? Don't be naive, Marla. That's June's husband with another woman. She has rights. Rights? Marla laughed bitterly. She gave up any rights when she abandoned him and turned his disappearance into a brand deal. That's not for you to decide, Tessa said, already pulling out her phone. June needs to know. An hour later, June burst into Marla's apartment, Kinsey in tow, waving the printed article. Is this some kind of joke? It's him, Marla confirmed. I found it 3 days ago. June stared at the image, her face twisting from shock to rage. Married? To this old woman? While I've been here worried, sick, pleading for information. Kinsey looked over her shoulder at the photo. He certainly upgraded his lifestyle. That boat looks expensive. He's rich, Tessa said, stating the obvious. Or she is. Either way, he's living it up in Florida while you're stuck with a missing persons case and a mortgage. June's eyes narrowed, a calculating look replacing the anger. He owes me. For what? Marla asked incredulously. For everything. For abandoning our marriage. For making me worry. For being abandoned in the middle of nowhere on his birthday. Marla interrupted. For being humiliated by his wife and her friends? That's what he owes you for. June dismissed her with a wave. He could have come home. He chose to run away. And now he's living some fantasy life with this fossil. What are you going to do? Kinsey asked, a gleam in her that Marla recognized all too well. We're going to Florida, June declared. All of us. I'm going to confront my husband and make him pay for what he's put me through. June, don't, Marla pleaded. Let him be. After all I've done for him, after I made a life for us. No, he doesn't get to just walk away and marry someone else. Actually, he does, Marla said quietly. You're the one who drove him away. June turned to her, eyes cold. You're either with us or against us, Marla. Choose now. Marla looked between the 3 women who had been her friends for years and the photograph of Corbin, who had always been kind to her despite June's treatment of him. I'll go, she said finally. Someone needs to be the voice of reason. The Tampa sun beat down on the marina, reflecting off the water in dazzling patterns. Corbin moved with purpose along the docks, checking in with boat owners, directing staff, entirely in his element. 2 years in Florida had tanned his skin and lightened his hair, But the most significant change was in his bearing confidence without arrogance. Authority worn comfortably. His phone buzzed with a message for Viola. Lunch at 1? Bring the contract for the Henderson slip. He smiled, texting back an affirmative. Their business partnership worked as seamlessly as their marriage, each respecting the other's expertise. Decisions made jointly, but autonomy preserved. Back in his office, a glass-walled space overlooking the marina, Corbin reviewed the day's schedule. His assistant, Rosa Flint, a no-nonsense former journalist, knocked on his door. Mr. Hale, there's a call online too. Woman says she's a reporter from Boating Weekly, wants to discuss the green initiatives you've implemented. Corbin nodded. I'll take it. The call was routine. As he hung up, Rosa appeared in the doorway again, her expression uncharacteristically troubled. Everything okay? He asked. There's someone in the lobby asking for you. Says she's your wife. Corbin stilled. My wife is at her office until noon. I know, Rosa said. This isn't Mrs. Manxhale. A cold certainty settled in Corbin's gut. He'd known this day might come, had prepared for it mentally, but the reality still sent a surge of unwelcome emotions through him. Did she give a name? June Whitlow Hale. She has 3 other women with her. Of course she did. The full entourage. Tell them I'll be out in 5 minutes, Corbin said, his voice even. And Rosa? Call Viola. Let her know what's happening. After Rosa left, Corbin took a moment to center himself. 2 years of building a new life, of healing from betrayal. He refused to let June's arrival disturb the peace he'd earned. When he stepped into the lobby, he was composed, professional every inch, the successful marina manager rather than the abandoned husband. June stood near the entrance, dressed in a carefully casual outfit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Kinsey and Tessa flanked her like lieutenants. Marla hung back, looking distinctly uncomfortable. Corbin. June's voice carried across the space, drawing the attention of staff and clients alike. Performative as always. It really is you. He approached at an unhurried pace. June, this is unexpected. Her eyes narrowed at his lack of reaction. Unexpected? I've been searching for you for 2 years. Have you? His tone remained neutral. Interesting approach to a search, leaving someone stranded without means of contact. Kinsey stepped forward. We can't take you home, Corbin. June's been worried sick. I doubt that, he replied, then addressed the group. This is a place of business. If you want to talk, we can do so privately in my office. Your office, June repeated, taking in the marina with a calculating gaze. In your fancy yacht club. Quite a step up from fixing trucks in Bozeman. Marina, Corbin corrected. And yes, it is. He led them through the building to his office, aware of the curious looks from staff. Once inside, he closed the door and took his seat behind the desk, a subtle reinforcement of where the power lay in this encounter. So, June began, dropping onto one of the visitor chairs without being invited. You've been living the high life while I've been dealing with police investigations and media attention. Is that what you call your TikTok campaign? Dealing with media attention? Corbin's voice remained level, but with an edge that hadn't been there before. Your tearful pleas for information about your missing husband while selling protein shakes. June's surprise at his knowledge was visible but fleeting. I had to support myself somehow while searching for you. You weren't searching, Corbin stated flatly. You were building a brand on a lie. How would you know? Tessa cut in. You disappeared without a word. After you left me stranded at an abandoned gas station with no phone, no wallet, and a note telling me to find my manhood, Corbin reminded them. Or did that detail get lost in the narrative you've been spinning? An uncomfortable silence fell. Marla shifted her weight, looking between Corbin and June. It was a prank, June said defensively. We were coming back for you the next day. Were you? Corbin asked, genuinely curious. Because your text to Marla that night said, and I quote, if he wants to come home, he can figure out himself. All eyes turned to Marla, who flushed red. You've been in contact with her? June demanded, rounding on her friend. No, Corbin answered before Marla could. But she sent me an email 6 months ago with screenshots of your group chat from that night. Quite illuminating. June's face hardened. So that's it? We played one joke on you, and you ran away to Florida and married some rich old woman. That joke was the final act in years of disrespect, Corbin replied. And Viola is my wife, my business partner, and deserving of more respect than you're showing. Business partner? Kinsey asked, eyebrows raised. What kind of business does a mechanic have with a ship owner? As if on cue, the office door opened and Viola entered. At 65, she commanded attention without effort-tailored clothes, minimal jewelry, and an air of absolute self-possession. The kind that owns this marina, 3 others along the Gulf Coast, and a shipping line, she answered, moving to stand beside Corbin. You must be the ex-wife I've heard so much about. Ex-wife? June sputtered. We're still married. Actually, Corbin said, opening a drawer and removing a folder. We're not. Abandonment is grounds for divorce in Montana. The papers were finalized 18 months ago. Your refusal to acknowledge service doesn't change that fact. He slid copies across the desk. You've been legally divorced for over a year, June. Your missing husband narrative is just that, a narrative. June stared at the documents, color draining from her face. This isn't possible. It's not only possible, it's fact, Viola said smoothly. Now, what is the real purpose of this visit? Surely not a joyful reunion. June recovered quickly, resentment replacing shock. He owes me. For the mortgage, for the emotional distress. I paid off the mortgage before filing for divorce. Corbin interrupted. The house is yours, free and clear. As for emotional distress, he allowed himself a small, cold smile. I believe that would be my claim to make, not yours. You can't just walk away and build this life while I've been suffering. June's voice rose, the practiced vulnerability giving way to genuine anger. Suffering all the way to 250,000 followers and sponsorship deals, Corbin noted. Yes, it looks like tremendous hardship. The door opened again, and Rosa entered, tablet in hand. Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Hale, but the Hendersons are here for their appointment. Thank you, Rosa. Please tell them I'll be with them shortly. Corbin stood, signaling the meeting was ending. June, you have the divorce papers. There's nothing more to discuss. This isn't over, June warned, also rising. You can't humiliate me like this and expect to get away with it. Humiliate you? Corbin's voice finally showed a hint of emotion, disbelief, mixed with disdain. I've said nothing publicly about what happened. I've made no statements, no accusations. I've simply moved on with my life, while letting me believe you might be dead. You never believed that, he said quietly. You knew exactly what you did and why I left. A knock at the door prevented further argument. Rosa poked her head in. Mr. Hale? The Hendersons are getting anxious. We're finished here, Viola declared, opening the door wider. Rosa, please escort these women out. June looked from Corbin to Viola, calculation visible behind her anger. This isn't finished, she repeated. Not by a long shot. As Rosa led them away, Marla lingered behind. Corbin, she said softly. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For all of it. He nodded, acknowledging her apology without accepting it. Why are you still with them, Marla? She glanced toward the departing group, then back to him. Someone needs to keep records of what really happened. With that cryptic statement, she hurried after the others, leaving Corbin and Viola alone. Well, Viola said dryly, that was about as pleasant as I expected. Corbin stepped around the desk and took her hand. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. I'm not, she replied. It was illuminating to see the woman who was foolish enough to throw you away. She squeezed his hand. Her loss, my considerable gain. 3 days passed without further contact from June and her entourage. Corbin maintained his regular schedule, refusing to be disrupted by their appearance, but remained watchful. June had never been one to surrender easily, especially when her pride was at stake. That on the 4th day, as he inspected a newly installed dock section, his phone rang with an unknown number. Corbin Hale, he answered professionally. It's Marla. Her voice was hushed, urgent. We need to meet. Alone. It's important. Suspicion flared. Why would I agree to that? Because June is planning something, and you need to know what it is. A pause. I'm not with them on this, Corbin. I never was. He considered his options. The public park near the marina. 2 o'clock. If anyone else shows up, I'm gone. Just me, she promised. 2 o'clock. Corbin arrived early, positioning himself where he could observe all approaches. At precisely 2, Marla appeared, alone as promised, carrying a small messenger bag. She looked nervous, constantly glancing over her shoulder. "Thank you for coming," she said as she sat beside him on the bench. "What's this about, Marla?" She took a deep breath. "June is going to claim you abused her, that you were controlling, that she feared for her safety, that the real reason you ran was because she was finally going to report you." Cold anger washed through him. "That's a lie." "I know," Marla said quickly. "We all know. But she's desperate. Your new life, your success, it's driving her crazy. It was supposed to be her who made it big, not you. And Kinsey and Tessa, they're going along with this." Marla nodded miserably. "Kinsey thinks it's brilliant. Tessa has reservations, but won't stand against June. Why are you telling me this?" She met his eyes directly for perhaps the first time in all the years he'd known her. "Because it's wrong. Because I've been complicit in enough of June's schemes. Because—" She hesitated. "Because you were always kind to me, even when June wasn't." Corbin studied her, searching for deception and finding none. What exactly is she planning? A media blitz. She's already recorded videos, written posts. She's going to claim she finally found you, confronted you, and you threatened her. That's why she's coming forward now. It's her word against mine. Marla's hand went to her bag. Not exactly. She pulled out a thumb drive and a stack of printed papers. "I've been documenting everything for the past 2 years. Screenshots of their private conversations planning the prank. Videos they recorded laughing about leaving you stranded. The group chat where they discussed how to leverage her disappearance for June's social media." Corbin stared at the evidence in disbelief. "You kept all this? Why?" "At first, as insurance in case the police ever took the missing persons case seriously. Then, I don't know, maybe I always knew this day would come." She handed everything to him. "There's also audio from 3 days ago, after we left her office. June explicitly planning to falsely accuse you. This could ruin her," Corbin observed, turning the thumb drive over in his hand. "She's planning to ruin you first," Marla replied. "And she doesn't care who gets hurt in the process." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Rosa, who approached at a brisk pace. "Mr. Hale, we have a situation at the marina." "What kind of situation?" "Your ex-wife and 2 women are at the entrance with a local news crew. They're claiming you've refused to speak with them about domestic abuse allegations." Corbin's jaw tightened. He turned to Marla. "Sooner than you expected?" She looked genuinely shocked. "They said they were planning for next week." "I swear, Corbin." He believed her. "Go home, Marla. You were never here. What are you going to do?" Corbin stood, evidence in hand. "End this, once and for all." When Corbin arrived at the marina, a small crowd had gathered. June stood at its center, speaking animatedly to a reporter while Kinsey and Tessa nodded supportively beside her. A cameraman captured the scene. "Feared for my safety," June was saying, tears glistening perfectly. "When I finally found him, he threatened me. That's why I have to speak out now." "Mrs. Whitlow Hale," the reporter prompted, "you're saying your husband abandoned you after you confronted him about his behavior." "Yes, and now he's—" June stopped mid-sentence as she spotted Corbin approaching. Her expression shifted quickly to practiced fear. "That's him." The camera swung toward Corbin, who walked calmly toward the group. Viola appeared at his side, having evidently been alerted to the situation. "Mr. Hale," the reporter called out, "your wife has made some serious allegations about your behavior during your marriage." "Care to comment?" "Ex-wife," Corbin corrected. "And yes, I have several comments." June stepped forward, positioning herself as vulnerable but brave. "Corbin, please, there's no need for this to get ugly. I just want closure." "Closure," Corbin repeated. "Is that what you call false allegations of abuse?" "I'm only telling my truth," June insisted, playing to the camera. "Your truth." Corbin's voice remained steady. "Let's talk about actual truth, June. Like how you and your friends abandoned me at a gas station on my birthday with no phone, no wallet, and no way home." The reporter's interest visibly shifted. "Is that true, Mrs. Whitlow Hale? It was a prank that went too far, Kinsey interjected smoothly. We came back for him the next day, but he was gone. A prank, Corbin echoed. He turned to the reporter. Would you consider it a prank to blindfold someone, drive them hours from home, and abandon them with nothing but a mocking note? Or would you call it cruel, potentially dangerous? A betrayal by the people who should have cared most. June stepped closer to the camera. You're twisting what happened. You were always controlling, manipulative. I have proof, Corbin interrupted, of everything. That stopped her. What do you mean, proof? Videos you took during the prank. Screenshots of your group, discussions planning it. Recordings of you laughing about leaving me stranded. He held up the thumb drive. Even a recent recording of you planning to falsely accuse me of abuse for social media attention. The color drained from June's face. That's your lying. Ms. Flint, Corbin called to Rosa, who stood nearby. As a former investigative journalist, would you be willing to review these materials for authenticity? Rosa stepped forward, professional interest piqued. Absolutely. This is ridiculous, Tessa protested. You can't just. Actually, I can, Corbin said. You came to my place of business with false accusations and a camera crew. You made this public. The reporter, sensing a bigger story than anticipated, turned to June. Mrs. Whitlow-Hale, would you care to respond to these counter-allegations? June's composure cracked. He's trying to ruin me. After everything I've done, after all this searching. Searching? Corbin raised an eyebrow. Or building a brand on a lie. I think, Viola interjected smoothly, that this has gone far beyond a personal dispute. Ms. Flint was an investigative reporter for 15 years before joining our team. She has contacts at every major news outlet in Florida. If Mr. Hale's evidence is as compelling as he suggests, this could become a much larger story than you intended, Mrs. Whitlow-Hale. The implied threat hung in the air. June looked from Corbin to Rosa to the reporter, calculating her options. This was a mistake, she finally said, forcing a dignified tone. I shouldn't have come here. Clearly Corbin is still angry about our separation. Divorce, Corbin corrected again. Finalized 18 months ago, and isn't ready for a civilized conversation. June continued as if he hadn't spoken. I'll be going now. And the allegations? The reporter pressed. I may have misspoken in my emotional state. June's retreat was strategic but unmistakable. Finding my husband after so long, it brought up a lot of feelings. Ex-husband, Corbin and Viola said in unison. The cameraman lowered his equipment, sensing the story disintegrating. June tugged at Kinsey and Tessa's arms, trying to make a graceful exit. The reporter, however, wasn't quite finished. Mr. Hale, if what you're saying is true, your ex-wife essentially built a social media career on your disappearance, a disappearance she helped engineer. That's quite a story. It is, Corbin agreed. And Ms. Flint would be happy to share the evidence with a legitimate news organization interested in the truth. The reporter handed him a card. I'd like to see that evidence. Properly in my office, with my producer present. As the news crew packed up, June made one last attempt. This isn't over, Corbin. It is, he replied simply. It has been for 2 years. Go home, June. She looked as if she might say more, but Kinsey pulled her away. Only Tessa lingered, an unreadable expression on her face. You know she'll find a way to spin this, she warned. Let her try, Corbin said. The truth has a way of coming out. Tessa shook her head. You've changed. Yes, he agreed. I have. As they departed, Viola took Corbin's arm. Well handled. It's not over, he predicted. June never gives up when her pride is at stake. Perhaps not, Viola conceded. But she's met her match in you, my dear. And she has no idea what's coming next. The Marina conference room had been transformed into a war room. Corbin, Viola, Rosa, and 2 attorneys sat around the large table, surrounded by printouts, digital evidence displayed on multiple screens. The evidence is robust, said Eleanor Prentice, Viola's longtime corporate attorney. Text messages, videos, social media posts, all documenting both the initial abandonment and the subsequent monetization of her disappearance. And the recent false allegations? Corbin asked. The second attorney, James Whitfield, a specialist in defamation law whom Viola had brought in, nodded. The recordings are damning. Ms. Whitlow Hale explicitly states her intention to falsely accuse you of abuse to rehabilitate her image. That's textbook defamation, with clear intent to cause harm. Rosa, who had spent 3 days reviewing and organizing all the material Marla had provided, looked up from her tablet. The reporter I spoke with is very interested. They want an exclusive. Viola turned to Corbin. It's your decision, dear. We can handle this quietly through legal channels, or we can allow the truth to come out publicly. Corbin considered his options. For 2 years, he'd sought only to move forward, to build a new life far from June's toxic influence. But her appearance in Tampa, her willingness to destroy his reputation for her own gain, had changed things. She came to my home, he said quietly. She brought cameras. She tried to label me an abuser. And she would have succeeded if Marla hadn't warned me. Viola nodded, understanding the shift in his thinking. So we fight back. Not for revenge, Corbin clarified. For truth. For consequences. What about Marla? Rosa asked. She's the source of most of this evidence. June will know who betrayed her. I've already offered her a position here, Corbin revealed. She accepted this morning. You trust her that much? Eleanor asked. I trust that she wants to make amends, Corbin replied, and that she's tired of living in June's shadow. Well then, James said, gathering his notes, let's proceed with a two-pronged approach. A defamation suit filed quietly, followed by a single, carefully managed interview with a reputable journalist. Ms. Flint, you mentioned Channel 8's investigative team? Rosa nodded. Alicia Dominguez. She's thorough, fair, and won't sensationalize. She also has a particular interest in social media fraud cases. Perfect, Viola declared. Set it up. The interview aired 3 days later. Alicia Dominguez presented the story with professional detachment, laying out the facts chronologically: the birthday prank, Corbin's journey to Florida, his new life, and June's campaign of misinformation. The evidence was shown in carefully selected segments. June and Kinsey laughing as they drove away from the gas station. Screenshots of the group chat where they decided not to return the next day, as claimed. June discussing how to monetize Corbin's disappearance. The most damning, June explicitly planning to falsely accuse Corbin of abuse to regain public sympathy after their confrontation at the marina. Corbin himself appeared only briefly, refusing to elaborate beyond the facts. I moved on, he told Dominguez. I built a new life. I only speak now because false allegations of abuse harm not just me, but real victims whose stories deserve to be heard and believed. The story went viral within hours. June's carefully constructed narrative collapsed as followers abandoned her in droves. Brands that had sponsored her Find Corbin content issued hasty statements distancing themselves from her. The hashtag #GaslightBirthday trended nationally. AS predicted. June attempted damage control, posting a tearful video claiming the evidence had been manipulated. Few believed her. When Tessa and Kinsey were approached for comment, they offered conflicting stories, further undermining June's credibility. A week after the interview aired, Corbin received a call from Detective Michael Brennan from the Bozeman Police Department. Mr. Hale, the detective began awkwardly, I've been handling your missing persons case for the past 2 years. I'm aware, Corbin replied. Though, I haven't been missing. No, sir. That's become abundantly clear. A pause. I wanted to personally apologize. We should have investigated more thoroughly when you were first reported missing. The evidence that's come to light, well, it suggests we were manipulated by Mrs. Whitlow Hale. You weren't the only ones, Corbin said, finding no satisfaction in the detective's discomfort. We'll be closing your case officially, and there may be charges considered against your ex-wife for filing a false report and misuse of police resources. After the call, Corbin sat in his office, looking out over the marina. The legal process was moving forward, the defamation suit proceeding despite June's desperate attempts to have it dismissed. Viola joined him, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. Penny, for your thoughts. I never wanted this, he admitted. The publicity, the legal battle, any of it. I know. She sat beside him. But sometimes the fights that find us are the ones we need to finish. He covered her hand with his own. I just want it over. Soon, she promised. The tide has turned. She's the one running now. The settlement offer arrived 3 weeks later. June's new attorney explained the terms. My client is prepared to issue a public retraction of all statements regarding alleged abuse. She will acknowledge the true circumstances of your separation, compensate you for damages to your reputation, and agree to cease all public commentary about you in perpetuity. And in return, Eleanor asked, Mr. Hale agrees to drop the lawsuit and make no further public statements about Mrs. Whitlow Hale. Corbin considered the offer. The damages? $500,000, the attorney said. It's a substantial sum, but given the potential outcome if this proceeds to trial, it's not about money, Corbin stated flatly. It's about truth. The truth will be acknowledged, the attorney assured him. In writing, publicly, permanently. Corbin looked to his lawyers, who nodded almost imperceptibly. The terms were favorable more than they might get at trial, without the prolonged stress of litigation. One addition, Corbin said. June personally apologizes to Marla for the position she put her in. Not publicly. I don't need to humiliate her further, but face-to-face with my attorneys present. The lawyer blinked, clearly not expecting this condition. I'll convey your terms to my client. 2 days later, in the same conference room, June sat across from Corbin for what both knew would be the last time. Gone was the carefully curated influencer image. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by the collapse of her social media empire. The apology to Marla, June's attorney prompted quietly. June looked past Corbin to where Marla sat at the end of the table. I'm sorry, she said stiffly, for putting you in an impossible position, for taking advantage of our friendship. Marla nodded once, accepting but not forgiving. The settlement papers were signed without further discussion. As June rose to leave, she paused, looking directly at Corbin for the first time. Was any of it real? She asked, her voice barely audible. Us. Corbin met her gaze steadily. Once. A long time ago. She nodded, a flicker of genuine emotion crossing her face. Goodbye, Corbin. Goodbye, June. After she left, Viola took Corbin's hand. It's over. He exhaled slowly, feeling a weight lift that he hadn't fully acknowledged until now. Yes, it is. 6 months passed. The legal battle concluded, the media attention faded, and life at the marina returned to its pleasant rhythm. Corbin and Viola expanded their business ventures, adding a boat-building school that offered vocational training to at-risk youth. Marla settled into her role managing the marina's administrative operations, proving herself both capable and trustworthy. June returned to Bozeman and maintained a low profile. According to Marla's occasional updates, she had sold the house and moved to Seattle, attempting to rebuild her life away from a scandal. Kinsey had distanced herself completely, while Tessa had reached out to Marla with a tentative apology. One crisp October morning, Corbin stood looking out over Tampa Bay, coffee in hand, as Viola reviewed renovation plans for their newest property. What do you think about expanding the fuel dock? She asked, spreading blueprints across the table. Seems logical, Corbin agreed, studying the plans. But I've been considering something else as well. Viola looked up, intrigued. Oh, he pulled out a folder containing property listings. Remember that abandoned gas station in Montana, where June and the others left me? Of course. It's for sale. He showed her the listing. Has been for years, apparently. No one wants it too remote, too rundown. Viola studied him carefully. And you want to buy it? I want to transform it, Corbin clarified, into a marine fuel station on the lake nearby. There's nothing like it for miles, and the summer boating traffic is substantial. This isn't about the business opportunity, Viola observed. Not entirely. Corbin smiled. She knew him too well. No, not entirely. You want to reclaim it. Turn a place of betrayal into something productive. I want to build something there that helps others, he admitted. A place where people who are lost can find their way again. Viola touched his face gently. Then we'll build it together. 3 months later, work began on the old gas station property. Corbin personally oversaw the demolition of the decrepit structure, then the construction of a modern facility that would serve both road travelers and boaters from the nearby lake. What will you call it? Rudy asked during one of his visits to the construction site. The old dockhand had become a regular presence in their lives, splitting his time between Florida and Montana since his retirement. Corbin considered the question as he looked over the transformed space. Second wind. Rudy nodded appreciatively. Fitting. As the project neared completion, Corbin found himself working alongside the local contractors, unable to resist the pull of hands-on creation. It was during one such day that a pickup truck pulled into the lot, and Marla stepped out. "I thought I might find you here," she said, approaching with a tentative smile. "Viola said you'd be on site this week." "Just finishing up the interior," Corbin replied, wiping his hands on a rag. "What brings you to Montana?" "Closure, I suppose." She looked around at the transformed property. "It's nothing like it was." "That's the point." They walked together through the new building, clean, bright, welcoming. Nothing remained of the desolate place where he'd once stood abandoned. "I keep thinking about that night," Marlo admitted as they reached the back patio overlooking the lake. "How easily I went along with it. How I didn't speak up." "You did eventually," Corbin reminded her. "When it mattered most." "Too late." "No." He shook his head. "Right on time. You gave me the truth when I needed it." Marla studied him. This man who had every reason to resent her, but had instead offered her a fresh start. "How did you do it?" "Move forward without bitterness." Corbin considered the question. "I didn't at first. I was angry for a long time. But then I realized something holding onto that anger meant June still had power over me. And now I'm grateful," he said simply. "What happened that night set me free. Led me to Viola, to a life I never imagined possible. From tragedy to triumph," Marlo observed. "From abandonment to purpose," Corbin corrected. "We're hiring staff for this place, you know. Looking for a manager." Marla's eyes widened. "Are you offering me a job?" "If you want it. Montana's a long way from Florida, but you mentioned wanting a change." "I'll think about it," she promised. As they looked out over the water, Corbin felt a sense of completion. The circle had closed. What had begun as an act of cruelty had transformed into an opportunity for redemption, not just for him, but for Marla. 2.2 years later, Second Wind had become a thriving hub for both local boaters and travelers passing through Montana. Under Marla's management, it had expanded beyond Corbin's initial vision to include a small boat-building workshop where local youth could learn traditional craftsmanship. Corbin and Viola divided their time between Tampa and Montana, spending summers by the lake and winters in Florida's warmth. Their business partnership had grown to include marine education initiatives in both locations, focusing particularly on creating opportunities for young people interested in traditional trades. That on a perfect summer evening, they hosted a graduation ceremony for the first class of apprentices from the Second Wind workshop. 6 young men and women, each with their own story of struggle and resilience, had completed the year-long program and would now move on to jobs in boatyards across the country. "You've built something remarkable here," Rudy observed as he and Corbin watched the graduates mingling with family members on the deck overlooking the lake. "From an abandoned gas station to this." "We built it," Corbin corrected, including both Rudy and Viola in the gesture. "All of us together." Viola joined them, champagne in hand. "The Henderson Foundation called today. They want to fund similar programs at 10 locations across the country. Using our model," Corbin asked. "With you as the executive director," she confirmed. "If you're interested, the opportunity to expand their work, to reach more young people in need of direction, it was exactly what Corbin had been working toward without fully articulating it, even to himself. "I need to travel," he said thoughtfully. "Help establish each location." "We'd travel," Viola corrected with a smile. "Partners, remember?" Later that evening, after the guests had departed, Corbin stood alone on the deck of the Vesper Grace, now permanently moored at their private dock on the lake. The yacht that had once represented Viola's past had become a symbol of their shared future restored, repurposed, renewed. Marlo approached, carrying 2 glasses. "Thought you might need this after all the speeches." He accepted the drink with a grateful nod. "Not really my natural habitat, and yet you did it beautifully." She leaned against the railing beside him. "Have you seen the news from Seattle? About June?" Viola mentioned something. "She's running a small marketing firm now. Legitimate work, no social media stunts." Apparently, she's doing well. Corbin nodded, unsurprised. June had always been talented when she focused on real work instead of cultivating an image. Good for her. Does it bother you that she's okay after everything? No. The answer came without hesitation, and Corbin realized it was true. Everyone deserves a second chance. That's what we're building here, isn't it? Marla smiled. Second wind. Exactly. A comfortable silence fell between them as they looked out over the water, now painted gold and crimson by the setting sun. From the shore, the sounds of celebration continued as the graduates and their families enjoyed the evening. I got a call from Tessie yesterday, Marla said eventually. She's applied for the program coordinator position at the Tampa location. Corbin raised an eyebrow. Interesting choice. She's changed, Marla said, like all of us. Do you think she'd be good for the role? I think she deserves the interview, at least. Corbin nodded. I'll leave that decision to you. You're a better judge of character than I am. I don't know about that, Marla laughed. I did spend years following June around, and then you did the right thing when it counted most, Corbin reminded her. That's what matters. As darkness fell, Viola joined them on deck, slipping her arm through Corbin's. The Foundation representatives want to see us in Chicago next month, she told him, to finalize the expansion plans. I was thinking we might take the long route, Corbin suggested. Drive up through the Midwest, visit some of the potential sites along the way. A road trip? Viola's eyes sparkled with amusement. How adventurous. With proper accommodations, he assured her. No abandoned gas stations this time. I should hope not, she replied dryly. Though I must admit, that particular misadventure worked out rather well for me in the end. As they stood together on the deck of the Vesper Grace, Corbin reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From abandoned and betrayed to fulfilled and purposeful. From alone to surrounded by people who valued him for exactly who he was. The stars emerged above them, reflected in the still water of the lake. Somewhere in the distance, a boat's motor hummed, someone finding their way home through the darkness. Some storms come to wash you clean, Corbin said quietly, echoing words Rudy had shared with him long ago. Others teach you how to sail. Viola squeezed his hand in understanding. Together, they had weathered the storm. Together, they had learned to sail toward horizons neither could have imagined alone. From the shoreline, the laughter of the graduates carried across the water young people whose lives had been redirected by second wind, just as Corbin's had been by that cruelly engineered birthday. The cycle of redemption continued, one life touching another, pain transformed into purpose. And in that moment, standing between his past and his future, Corbin Hale was precisely where he was meant to be, unbothered, undefeated, and entirely in control of his destiny.